Today we will make some spider art. For this project, I'll be using a dark colored piece of paper, some white paint. I'm just using acrylic paint, but tempera works too. I've got a brush, and then I'll be using a small piece of paper and some tape later on. All right, I'm doing this on a very small piece of paper, but you could also do it on like a 9 by 12. That's probably the size I would recommend. But just for viewing purposes, I'm making mine a little bit smaller. And I'm starting off with kind of a shape in the center. It's not necessarily a circle, but I'm going more for like an octagon or something that has a little bit more of angles to the edges. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make some lines that go out from this center shape. So they are radiating lines, meaning they go from the center out to the edges. Sometimes it helps to actually make the top and the bottom lines first, and then the two sides, kind of like a compass, and then draw the lines in between. But I'm just going all the way around mine. Now, as I paint these, I'm trying to use the very tip of my brush. This is actually a great exercise for brush control. If you use the very tip of your brush, kind of think of it like a ballerina dancing across just on her toes. So I'm very, very lightly pressing on my brush to try to get thinner lines. Now, once I have all of my radiating lines in my picture here, I can go ahead and start making it look like a spider's web. Now, to do that, I want to start kind of in the middle and then kind of go around from there. So I'm going to go ahead and dip my brush in some white again. And now I'm going to start at any spot and I'm going to start connecting my radiating lines together. And you'll notice as I do it that I have a slight curve to them. They curve a little bit towards the inside and then they stop when they get to the next section. So there's a slight curve inward when making this spider web. Again, great practice for brush control. Now, instead of going back to where I started, I want to continue this curve. So it's like a spiral, and I'm going to go a little bit higher so that I can keep going around and around and around. And I'm really trying to use the tip of my brush just like a pencil. I'm not pressing down too hard because I really want to show some good brush control. I'm going to continue this spiral all the way around until I run out of paper. So I want to take it all the way to the top and the bottom. And because my paper is a little bit longer, my sides will have a little bit of extra space and I can add these lines on the sides too. So if you do run out of space on the top and bottom, you can still add more areas to the side parts of your spider web. I'm going to keep on going until I fill my paper with this web. Now again, I'm working on a small paper. I recommend at least a 9 by 12 for this. If you are a kid, just because it'll give you a little bit more space to work with. I'm using a pointed paintbrush, as you can see, so that gives me a little bit more control over my lines. All right, I ran out of space on the top and bottom, but I still have space on the sides. So I'm going to keep on adding lines to the sides of my web, even though the top and bottom are already full. That way my web takes up the entire paper. Now, I could be done with my web just like it is. I could leave it with these lines. It definitely looks like a spider's web, but I like to get a little bit fancier. So what I want to do is jazz it up a little bit. And by doing that, I'm meaning maybe adding some patterns, adding some extra lines, some extra designs. Maybe I want to pick a section in each part of my web and add some type of pattern to it. It could be a zigzag pattern like this one here. It could be a dot pattern. It could be stripes. It could be a crisscross, whatever you would like. Here I'm using some vertical lines. Actually, I guess they look diagonal from this angle. And I could use another pattern here. Maybe I'll do some wavy lines. So I'm not doing every single section because that would be a little bit too much, but I do want to do a couple here and there. These would make extra fly traps when my spider gets hungry. If a fly flew through these sections, it would be a lot easier to catch the fly. Now, I'm going to go ahead and kind of just pick a spot in each part of my web to add these designs to. Maybe just one per section so that it doesn't get too busy. If you want to add maybe a couple per section, I'm sure that would work too. I'm going to keep on doing this until I have added something in each section of my web. Here you can see I've added X's, I added another swirl. You could probably repeat a couple patterns if you really wanted to as well, or if you want to challenge yourself, you could do all different patterns. As I continue the patterns, I'm also thinking about going for a walk in the early morning or earlier in the day when I see spider webs, in the forest or maybe on a bridge or something like that. A lot of times they have morning dew on them, right? Or maybe right after the rain, you can see drops of water that sticks to the spider's web. So I was also thinking for my project that it might be kind of fun to do what might look like little drops. And to do that, I'm going to use the back side of my brush instead. So I'm going to dip the end in, and I want to add little dots on the lines of my web, not in the middle, but along the lines to make it look like little dewdrops or raindrops that have attached to the spider's web. I think this looks super cool. I've even taken some pictures of dewdrops on webs before just because I think it's fascinating how they show all these little intricate details and designs that the spiders make. I'm going to go ahead and do this on my radiating lines, but you're welcome to choose whichever lines you want. Again, I don't think I'm going to do it on every line on my web because that would be a lot of lines and it might get a little bit too busy. So I'm going to do my radiating lines and maybe a couple others here and there and add those dewdrops to my web. I like to use the back of my brush because usually it makes my dots a lot more round. If I used the brush part of my brush, usually my dots aren't circles and they're not quite as neat. So this is a great trick to making circles or polka dots. You just have to make sure that you are dipping your brush often enough so that you have enough paint on your brush to make the dots on your web. When I feel like I have enough dots, I'm going to go ahead and stop. I'm going to put my spider web off to the side and let it dry, and then I will design a spider. Now for my spider, I'm just going to use a small piece of paper. So make sure you have a fun colored paper ready to go for the spider. Now, I'm using paint samples from the hardware store. I love using these for art projects, and I had some sitting in my room, so I thought I would use these. You could also just use construction paper as well. I want to keep my spider pretty simple, so I'm going to make a nice big circle for the main part of the body, and then I'm going to make a smaller oval or circle attached to it for the head. Nothing too fancy here. I'm going to save all the fancy stuff for the designs that I put on my spider. Now, I've decided to use Sharpie to draw my spider, and I think I'm going to use colored Sharpies to add a little bit of color or design to my Sharpie, to my spider as well. So really, this is up to you. I'm not going for a realistic spider. I just want it to be a fun spider with fun designs. So as I add my designs, I'm just going to have fun with it, get creative, and kind of make up whatever design I would like. I sped this up just a little bit so that you get the idea of what I decided to do. Like I said, I'm using colored Sharpies. I kind of wanted to do a color scheme, so I'm using warm colors since I had a cool background for my spider web. And I'm just going to add a couple stripes. Maybe I will go ahead and add some other shapes, maybe some dots along the stripes. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. You could make it look like a specific kind of spider if you want, if you know what different kinds of spiders look like. But for me, I just decided to design my own spider for my project. Right now, I'm only doing the body. I'm not going to worry about adding any legs at this point. I am going to add a face to my spider. I can decide how many eyes I want. I think I'm just going to go with 2. And I know there are spiders that have more than that. I'm going to just kind of play around with a different design on the face. Maybe I'll outline these 2 eyes, make it a little cartoony looking, and maybe a little mouth to go with it. Really make it whatever you would like. Maybe I'll add some orange dots on the head too, so it kind of looks good with the body. And now I am ready for some legs. Now, for the legs of my spider, I want to start by making a very skinny diamond on my paper. Then I'm going to go and make another line to make another diamond and another diamond and another diamond until I have 5 lines on each side of the diamond. This will be my legs for my spider. So the 5 lines on each side will end up making 4 legs. So I can go ahead and cut those legs out one by one to create the legs of my spider. And spider's legs look great when they are bent like this, so this should work really well. Now, if you'd rather, you could also use 4 pipe cleaners as legs too, and you can tape the 4 pipe cleaners to the back of the spider and then bend them however you would like for your spider legs. So that's definitely an option as well. Either way works just great. So here are all my legs ready to go. Here's my spider that also needs to be cut out. And then instead of glue, I'm going to actually use some tape. So I'm going to get some tape ready to go. I will just be using a masking tape or painter's tape would work. Scotch tape maybe if it's strong enough. But yeah, we'll do that to attach everything to the spider and to add the spider to the web. So when I line these legs up, I usually start in the front like this with my 2 sets of legs going forward. And then for the back, I have 2 sets of legs going backward like that. And that to me makes a believable looking spider. So you can kind of play around with the placement of your legs first, and then you hopefully will be ready to glue them on. If you're making paper legs, you can also add patterns or designs to your legs to kind of make them work with your spider as well. Now I have attached my legs using a piece of tape or a couple pieces on the back. And now I just roll the piece of tape to stick on my spider so that I can decide where I want to put him on my web. You can kind of place him wherever, and I kind of think it's fun to have him hanging off the side a little bit too. Another way to add him to the web would be to use a stapler. That, of course, would work as well. And there you have my finished spider masterpiece. I hope you enjoyed doing this project with me today. I know it's a fun one. Thanks so much for watching, and join me on Elke Art for more fun art projects. See you later.